Meeting with a public hearing, and the issue before us is the modification of the volunteer firefighter tax abatement ordinance. So before I open the microphone up to members of the public, I would like to turn it over to the town attorney to give an overview on what was discussed at the ordinance committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently, under the Southington Town Code, our volunteer firefighters can qualify for a $1,000 tax abatement. That's pursuant to an old Connecticut statute that allowed for that tax abatement if they qualify under the volunteer firefighter program in town. There's two separate tiers. So you can either currently qualify for $500 or $1,000 based on level of service. But recently, the state legislature increased the tax abatement to $1,500. So we have therefore adjusted the draft, which was considered by the ordinance committee on October 16th, I believe, up to $1,500. There is the lower tier where the volunteer firefighters could qualify for a $750 tax abatement. This tax abatement would also extend to volunteer firefighters who have served the town in the past and are now retired, having served at least 25 years. So that did go before the Ordinance Review Committee a couple weeks ago. It passed very favorably, and we are here for the public hearing today.
Great. Go ahead, Ms. Lombardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just think that we need to clarify for the public. We've been using the term abatement pretty loosely over the last two meetings, whereas at the last meeting it was an assessment abatement. This here, as you can see in paragraph E in our package, the wording really should be the abatement credit. Paragraph E is the only place where it really spikes out that it's a credit, not a reduction of the assessed value. So I think it's just, I don't think we need to change the document, but I think it's important for the town attorney to make that clarification on the record.
You're absolutely correct, Councilman Lombardi. It is not a reduction of the assessed value of the property. Is it actually a $1,500 reduction to the liability owed by the volunteer firefighter tax payer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Dietzick?
To the town attorney, so do you know when did the Connecticut legislature amend their legislation?
It was the end of the last legislative period. I think it was June.
So very recently, because this doesn't look like it was updated since 2000 or 1999.
That looks correct, yes. I think it was June 28th of this year, if
Okay.
I remember correctly.
Any other questions from council members to clarify before I open up for the public? Okay, so with that, the microphone is now open for members of the public to speak. We'd ask that you start by stating your name and address for the record and limiting your remarks to 5 minutes, please. Chief.
Good evening, Richard Butler, Fire Chief, Town of Southington. Tonight, I would like to come and throw my support behind this bill, as well as the chairman of the Fire Commission. We both believe that this is going to be vital to recruiting and retaining our volunteers. And I know that the volunteer fire service pushed very hard at the state level to get this increased. So I would like to see us as well move forward and vote in favor of this, because we need every tool at our disposal to be able to keep the volunteer service healthy here. And I view this as definitely one of the ways that we can do that. So I really do encourage everybody to vote in favor of this. This is really supporting our volunteers. And I think that a vote that way tonight would go a long way to show the volunteers that the council is definitely supporting them. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, John Moyce, 238 Stonegate Road, and Fire Commissioner. Like the chief said, this would go a long way. When we talk about carrier recruitment and retention, this is just as much retention as anything else, because we have many volunteer firefighters who may stay a little longer because this increase would help them. There's other towns that have taken this on in Bosra, Wallingford, and East Haven, to name a few. since June 5th was the date when this was enacted or signed by the governor. So it's definitely a great thing. We working with the Recruitment and Retention Committee. This is one of the things we talked about over and over. What can we do to entice people, not just to come be a volunteer, but also retain in what we have? So wholeheartedly support this, and I want to thank you all for taking this up tonight. Thank you.
Any other members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, last call before I close the public hearing. Any other members like to speak? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move right into the regular meeting. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Christopher Poulos,
Here.
Michael Ricchio,
Here.
Victoria Triano. Here. John Barry.
Here.
William Diedzik,
Here.
Tom Lombardi,
Here.
Dawn Miceli,
Present.
Kelly Morrissey,
Here.
Christopher Palmieri.
Here. If we can stand for the prayer.
Our Father, help us this night to do the right thing in all of the issues that we consider. Help us to not be persuaded by popular opinion or political ambition, but rather to see this office as a gift from you. Help us walk upright in this calling. Amen.
Amen. And after the flag salute, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence, please, in a memory of John Fontana, who was a very instrumental member of our community, and I'm sure we'll all miss him deeply. So we will pause for a moment of silence after the flag salute. And can I ask Chief Butler to lead us in the flag salute? Thank you very much. Okay, next item on the agenda is the minutes from our last meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, any suggestions for changes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are passed. Councilperson communication. Before I open it up, I'd just like to take a moment, as this is our last meeting, as a body, I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge two of our members that will not be joining us because they've chosen not to run for re-election. So I'd just like to thank them and highlight some of their accomplishments. So we'll start with Councilman Ricchio. Mike began his public service in 1993 until 2001 after being elected to Planning and Zoning, and he served as the chairman for his last term. In 2001, Mike was elected to the town council and served a total of 12 years, twice being our council chairman. Mike was a founding member of the Open Space Acquisition Committee and served for 11 years and was chairman for 2 years. He served on the Economic Strike Commission for 4 years, serving as chairman for 2 of those years. He served in the Seed Commission for 4 years, served on Southington's Parking Authority for 5 years and was a prior chair. And some of the committees he has been part of are the GURA Building Use Committee, a founding member of the Southington Drive-In Committee, and the chairman of the Southington Renaissance Committee. He served on the Bradley Advisory Board and currently holds a seat as an incorporator for the hospital. He also is the incorporator for the Liberty Bank, and he appears weekly on Fox 61, if you haven't seen him, on his program, The House That Social Media Built. Recently, the St. Jude Hospital sought Mike out to put his skills to work and to flip a home in Texas to benefit the hospital. Mike is a respected leader and philanthropist here in Southington, and he will be missed on this town council. So if we can please give Mike a big round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Dawn Miceli, who has chose not to run as well. Dawn began her political career in planning and zoning in 2007 and then ran for the town council in 2009, and she is the current vice chairwoman of the town council. Some of her accomplishments she's proud of. She distributed more than $250,000 to Southington civic groups and nonprofit organizations as a result of the Southington Drive-In. The transformation of the historic Gura building into the Southington Community Cultural Arts, or SOCA as it's known now. Establishing the community-wide event known as White Christmas in the Community by combining two long-standing traditional events, both in Southington and Plantsville, into one. She spearheaded our specially made LED lit ornamental structures that grace the linear trail and our two greens during the holiday season, not just at the White Christmas event. And the Apple was a popular selfie located during the Apple Harvest Festival as well for the past couple years. And open space initiatives, including the negotiations for the parcels for which we applied for state grant funding this year, the creation of a premier open space video, and securing grant funding for our first open space pollinator garden. Dawn has done a lot of work as well and will be greatly missed by this council. If we could please acknowledge Dawn and give her a huge round of applause as well. Dawn or Mike, did you want to say any
Oh, it was
words?
very nice and not necessary, but thank you very much. Thank you to everybody. It's been a pleasure working with everybody.
Thank you. Dawn?
I do. Mike, you're not going to say anything?
No.
Okay. I have to. I just want to thank the residents of Southington for allowing me to represent them, first on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 2 years and now on the council for the past 10 years. I always served with the best intentions for our community, and I did what I believed was right for our municipality. Even when those discussions were difficult to make, because let's face it, when you say no to certain programs or projects in town, and then you see people at the grocery store, it can be tough to see them face to face. But that's leadership. You have to make hard choices for the 43,000 people in our town. And, you know, we make those choices up here twice a month, and that's what we all signed up for. That said, I never enjoyed the politics part of serving. In fact, when people would call me a politician or assume that I liked to discuss state or national politics, I would stop them. We don't get paid up here. We are truly just volunteers, and we should all want to be fiscally conservative with the charge of our sacred tax dollars, while also coveting our town to be the most desirable place to live and do business in out of the state's total of 169 municipalities, right? I mean, that's a given. My biggest thrill has been serving has been to secure private monies, private revenue streams, and grant money to pay for all of, you know, the great projects that I wanted to be involved with. And I hope that some of my colleagues will continue along that tradition in my absence. And please know that I'm happy to volunteer to help write grants for future initiatives. On this dais, I have served the longest with Chris Palmieri, John Barry, and Mark Schoda. And I consider each of you friends. You're like brothers to me. I valued our time together. During the good, the bad, the ugly, Kathy Larkin and Linda, same with you guys. You've been here since my day one. So thank you for all of your knowledge and expertise on this town. And I'd also like to thank all of my council colleagues with whom I have served for the past decade, as well as our awesome, town hall staff and department heads. It's been a pleasure. So in closing, whether you agreed with my decision and policy making or not, please know that I love this town. I never got to be a cheerleader in high school, so I feel like I've been a good cheerleader for our town, darn it. And I want to continue to fight the good fight for Southington, whether I'm up here or not. And as my friend Art Secondo used to say, we live on an oasis. We're here in an oasis here in Southington, and there's nowhere else I want to live. So thank you, Southington, for letting me serve. Thank you. Let's go home.
Okay, councilperson communication. Mr. Lombardi and then Mrs. Morrissey.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
So I just want to piggyback off what Chris was saying to Mike and Dawn, thank you for paving the way. I don't normally say thank you, not that everyone's not deserving, but I don't typically like to be thanked, but I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you for teaching all of us. My past 2 years, I've learned a lot from you guys. And while I don't know if I'll have another 2 years, I hope I do. I think on November 5th, when everyone goes to the polls and elects, I hope they keep you guys in mind and show that you gave so much to this town, and that the people that come after you have big shoes to fill.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Lombardi.
Yeah, congratulations to amazing accomplishments and dedication from both Dawn and Mike for over the years, and to all of us who have served over the last 2 years. As we all know up here, things get a little political for 6 weeks maybe around Southington, but overall, and I tell this to a lot of people throughout the year, this is an amazing town with amazing volunteers who serve on the council and other boards. And I just want to end it by thanking the chairman for serving as our chair over the last 2 years. It's certainly not an easy job, but I do appreciate what you've done. So thank you again to Mike and Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other councilman communication? Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Poulos.
I'll echo the thanks from all the people who have spoken about Mike and Dawn. And again, the example over the last 2 years as a first-term counselor. Thank you for that gift, and thank you for your leadership. I have a few items that I want to share, report out on. Again, Historical Society's big program is this Wednesday at 6:30 at Daranowski School. It's the Paranormal Society from Eastern Connecticut. They're going to tell us what they think about the Southington Historical Society building and the South End Schoolhouse as to whether they're haunted or not. It's a $3 charge, so we hope you'll support the society with your attendance. And there's a special thanks to Craft Kitchen, who's a collaborator in that program. And it's the season. I always think November 1st kind of kicks off the holiday season. The ornaments are for sale, usual spots, Town Clerk's Office, SoCA, Barnes Museum. This year's ornament has a picture of the Sylvia Bradley building where the Historical Society is. And if you really like ornaments, previous year ornaments are for sale as well. You can buy the whole collection. I have, as we had a public hearing about the abatement for the volunteer firefighters, the chairman of the Fire Commission asked me in my capacity as a member of the Volunteer Recruitment and Retention Committee that just to say that we're voting tonight on this abatement, that he and the chief have really worked hard to push this forward. It's going to help us retain our volunteer firefighters, but also, more importantly, help us to recruit more firefighters. And so keep that in mind to the colleagues that this is something we should all support. We have had a significant effort as the result of this committee in terms of our recruitment and retention efforts. And I'll pass these out, in preparation for the apple harvest and the Plantsville Halloween in the Village, developed these cards, these recruitment cards that I've talked about before. I'll pass these down for people to take a look at and enjoy. And the SFD had quite a presence at the corner there of Apple Alley and Columbus Boulevard. They passed out these cards to interested people, but also it was a place for parents and families to go. They had Squad 5. It was a big hit down there. Kids were taking photos. The typical plastic hats for the kids. But many residents came. Some came to sign up for home safety analysis, which is always good. And since those two efforts, we've gotten 8 applications for additional volunteers, people who said we want to put in an application, 2 of which are female.
I gotta give that a hand. I'm so happy.
So, well, I have to say that, as kind of like a third-party observer of this on this committee, the work of the recruitment and retention committee is truly collaborative. And there are career firefighters and volunteer firefighters brainstorming together, planning together, replying all about language on cards. Everybody has a voice at the table, and it brings me great satisfaction to see people celebrate together. So, there's many other details about the committee, but essentially we're moving forward with recruitment. I'm looking forward to our next meeting in mid-November, assuming I'm here, and reporting out the good work of the recruitment committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could
Sure.
just, I have something I want to talk about too, but I did want to make a statement, and that is that what Dawn and Mike have similar is great vision. And we're going to miss that on the council. Because whether you're talking about Dawn and she has this vision of bringing Plantsville and Southington together, or taking a building that we were going to throw out a few years ago, we were going to knock it down and use it as parking. It took such great vision. Michael, the same way. He sees a piece of land and he understands how to make that into something wonderful, whether it's farmland or construction or whatever. There's a vision that both of these individuals have given to this council. And I must admit that I am inspired to be around both of them. And it's something that whomever is sitting up here, I said at the library that this seat isn't owned by any one of us. This seat is owned by the town and the citizens of this community. But whomever sits in our seat, I would just hope that we allow ourselves to have that vision for our future that both Dawn and Mike have shown over the years. And I, for one, am going to miss both of them very, very much, and look forward to working with them, even if they're not on the dais, but they're just too much of a great resource to have and not tap into. And so, Dawn, thank you. And Michael, thank you so much. And I wanted to say that from the very bottom of my heart, we haven't always all agreed at times, that's for sure, but you have to call the passion that we've seen in both of these individuals. You have to address that, because without that passion, we will never go forward as a community. We'll stay in the same rut. But I'm just so grateful that we've been able to serve together. And even though sometimes specifics, we get a little bit hot under the collar, still the vision for greater Southington has always been here because of them. And I wanted to say thank you. Okay. So I also, this week, I had the opportunity to work with the Southington PD and Rotary in the Drug Take Back program that was held at Walmart. And I thought to myself before I went, how many people are going to drop off drugs at Walmart? Boxes and boxes of narcotics were turned in. People just having opioids in their house and in their medicine cabinet, or expired medicines, and people brought them, and it was so inspiring. I just want to say thank you to Walmart for being there. They set up their tables for us and were so gracious to all of us that were there. And I'm hoping that we set this up again for next year and really get the word out there. It was quite inspiring. Thank you.
Just to tag on to that, and I had a STEPS meeting today.
STEPS,
It's 73.5 pounds of drugs that was taken back. 73.5 pounds.
Just leftover pills
Right.
in people's cabinets.
Amazing. And it was with Southington Police Department, Walmart, Rotary, and STEPS that
Steps,
were
I'm
co-sponsors.
sorry, I did forget Steps.
That's okay. And I also just want to remind everyone, although that this is a take-back day, there is a permanent drop box located in the Southington Police Department, 365 days a year, 24/7, where you can drop off any unwanted pills. But as the National Take Back Day, certainly there was participation, but there is a venue every single day to do that as well.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ricchio.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for your kind comments this evening. I just wanted to note, while we have 3 committee members, Dawn, Dave Zoni, and myself here tonight, Mike Fazzolo is not, we had...
He's watching.
He's watching. Where's the camera? We had an amazing Halloween festival this year. I thought it was our best, but the accountant told me it wasn't. We took in over $12,000 at the gate in like 3 hours, which is unbelievable. And has it been 12 years? How long has it been?
Well, we've been 10 years.
10
but
years?
This was our eighth.
Oh, okay.
Or eighth Halloween festival.
So I
Get to
get to
cancel.
drive the tractor for the hay rides every year, and I remember that first year driving through, because we were filming it for a reality TV show that year. I remember driving through, I'm like, oh my God, I wish my dad could see this, because he would be like, wow, this is really cool. Well, it's gone on for 10 years, or 8 years, Dawn, and to see the crowd, and I know we had issues because it was so crowded that not everybody could come in, but we could never have pulled it off, and we sent a thank you out to the staff. A lot of the guys are here, fire, police, engineering, Mark's office, everybody helped out, and they helped out like at the last minute. Dawn's on the phone calling people, but it's an amazing thing. I hope the drive-in goes on forever, and I just wanted to thank everybody that came, not just from Southington, but from surrounding towns. It was a great event, so, thank you, and I'm proud that we've been able to raise, you said the number, Dawn, over $250,000 for local charity, so it's really awesome. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah. He started. It's like, you know what? So let me just piggyback on, and that's what's awesome, Mike. I mean, it was you coming before this council saying we should do something with that screen that they saved at the drive-in, and I thought to myself, yeah, but I don't want town workers. I don't want our tax dollars to go for that. And then this idea was born about having these civic groups host. So speaking of the civic groups, we had the Lions Club, we had CERT team members, we had Unico, we had SOCA, we had the Key Club, STEPS, DECA, police and firefighters, local business community. John Adams, our new theater manager, awesome. His sidekick, former Thalberg principal, Beecher LaJoy, and Mike's brother, David Riccio, my husband, Joe Miceli, Mike, your daughter. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, it's a great day.
Glad that's going to continue.
Yeah.
I want to thank both of you because Mark Ramsey dropped off pumpkins at DePaulo for an event we have
forgot to
tomorrow
say
night.
Oh, good.
Leaf as well.
I
And
forgot to say leave.
Yeah, Mark, you have to thank Mark, because
Yes,
he
huge.
basically runs the whole tractor ride, pumpkin, bowling, and without, it probably wouldn't be a festival without Mark Ramsey, so,
Totally agree.
yep.
and thank both of you for donating the pumpkins for our event tomorrow night. We appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't think Dawn knew that, so, Dawn, we donated pumpkins, by the way.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Don.
That was a committee of one decision.
We do that a lot.
Oops.
Any other councilman communication? Okay, I just have a couple things. First of all, I had the pleasure of attending the drug rally with our fantastic MC for the 29th year.
Ninth year, Mr.
Vicky Triano. So that was October 17th in the town green. A great event to bring out so many of our youth in town to pledge to be drug-free. So thanks to everyone that came out to support that. Vice Chair Miceli and I had the pleasure of attending the Calvinist Foundation 50th anniversary event, which was October 22nd. As I said that day, we should be celebrating them for what they've given us for 50 years. But instead, what the family did is decided to give out 50 $1,000 scholarships to local organizations in this community. So it's fantastic. So they gave out $50,000 to this community, including every single local school and many other charitable organizations. So we are indebted to the Calvinist Foundation, and we had the pleasure on behalf of the entire town council to proclaim October 22nd, 2019 as AquaTurf Day in the town of Southington. So, so well-deserved for their 50th anniversary. Also, wanted to share some good news related to STEPS. I had the pleasure of attending the State of Connecticut Association of Prevention Professionals event, which was last Friday, and 3 members of our community were honored at that event. I'd like to acknowledge Denise Seacott, who was named the Parent Sector Coalition All-Star, and Deputy Chief Palmieri from the Southington Police Department was named the Law Enforcement Sector Coalition All-Star. And of course, Kelly Lepard, who we're very lucky to have as our town employee, was named the Prevention Professional of the Year. And again, this is a statewide event, so I'd like to acknowledge those 3 people and thank them for their contributions they make to STEPS.
I'm going to just add then, a little addendum, because our chairman is too humble to announce that he was also given an award. He is the Town Government Coalition All-Star Volunteer. So thank you also, Chris, for your work.
Thank
and
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then finally, I received an invitation from the Kiltonic Post number 72 American Legion. They will be celebrating their Veterans Day ceremony, so I'm extending the invitation to the council, and it's open to the public as well. It'll take place 64 Main Street in Southington, Monday, November 11th, 2019, at 10:55 a.m. Not quite sure the time, but 10:55 a.m. is what they said. And the invitation is open if you're interested in attending. Please feel free to attend that event on November 11th.
It actually will begin at 11 o'clock exactly. 'cause
Oh,
it's
is that what it's
11, yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay, that explains the 10:55.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And as it is our last council meeting, I began the term just highlighting some of what we would like to do, and first and foremost, I wish all of our candidates, both up here and that are not on the dais with us this evening, that are running for town council, the absolute very best. And I want to thank all of you. It has been an absolute pleasure to serve all of you as chair, as well as serve members of the community. So I just like to take a moment and highlight the collective work. And I say collective because I do mean all 9 of us working together, as well as some other boards. And these are just some of the things that I thought of to highlight that we've accomplished together. We've opened the lines of communication across party lines, especially via the Committee of the Chairs, where we're working with both parties and all 4 major boards in town. Ensured town business was open and transparent through our monthly updates with department heads coming right here and sharing out some of what they've been up to for the year and highlighting that for all our residents as our meetings are televised. Delivered low property tax increases over the past 2 years. Identified and passed tax incentive programs to help those in need, just at our last meeting, including seniors on fixed income, people with disability, and veterans. Hired 2 new firefighters. Passed a resolution to support keeping Bradley Memorial Hospital. Invested in economic development, specific related to downtown Plantsville and downtown Southington, and offered additional manufacturing abatements throughout the course of the year, the past 2 years. Passed a preferred bidder ordinance to assist local businesses, initiated the possibility of public transportation in Southington, especially to assist people with disabilities, formed a diversity committee to review hiring practices and town policies, hosted community chats for residents to express their opinions in a more comfortable environment. I know many people don't feel comfortable talking in front of a microphone. Invested in open space to prevent continued development and maintain the integrity of our town. Thank you to the residents for that, as it was a referendum item as well. We passed multiple ordinances, including being among the first in the state of Connecticut to raise the selling age for tobacco-related products from 18 to 21. Now, obviously, it's state law now, but we did this prior to the state passing that law. Invested in infrastructure and improved the quality of our roads, and created an employee incentive program that we just had last meeting or 2 meetings ago. So again, couldn't be prouder. These are collective accomplishments of your entire Southington Town Council. So just reflecting back on our term, just like to thank all the residents, and hopefully we've served you well over the last couple years. All right, so moving on to report a special
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Thank you. I know we don't want to discuss all the items that you just mentioned, but I did miss one meeting over the last term, and was there any open space that was added during the last 2 years?
What I said was we invested in open space, and that was specifically.
So when you say invested, that means the town spent money?
Well, that's why I just thank the residents too, because we put out a referendum and asked the voters to approve money for open space.
So the money was approved on referendum, but did we spend any money on open space?
Well,
I'll defer.
I'm going to just clarify. So we did add to our open space coffers the 2 parcels that were maybe a little shy of 10 acres. I've heard some people say undevelopable and that sort of thing, but they were categorized as open space by this council. Also, remember, January 28th, 2018, this council approved the resolution to go for state funding, 65% grant funding for a wildlife corridor in town. To be fiscally prudent, we're going after the grant monies, which we thought we would have heard about by now. Looks like December 1st at this point. We could have purchased those properties right then and there. In order to go for the grant funding, the appraisals had to be done, all of the I's dotted and T's crossed and all of that good stuff. So that was approved by this council. So now the rest is a formality.
Right. So the land that was given to, it was a tax lien that was useless land that was the owner abandoned more or less that the town took. But I think we need to clarify that the town did not purchase any open space over the last 2 years. Yes, we have done things to move the open space committee and the council forward, but there has not been any open space added in the last 2 years.
Well, I disagree because, like I said, we added to our open space coffers. A little shy of 10 acres. So you call it one thing, I call it another.
That's all I have for questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to report of special committees. The ordinance committee, and actually I think that was pretty much covered in the public hearing, which again, just to remind everyone tonight, we have a proposed ordinance before us for the volunteer firefighters, which we will take action on. Attorney Futner, is there anything else you wanted to add besides that? I can't imagine.
I think we covered one item, the quick meeting. John Moyes, thank you for coming out and presenting for the Fire Commission, but I think we covered it all at public hearing.
Okay. All right, so moving on then to the town manager's report and communications. So Public Works contract.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. The first item I have is I'm happy to say that the Public Works employee contract was overwhelmingly approved by the union. Let me first start by saying that I want to congratulate and state my appreciation for President Eric Princehorn and his staff when we negotiated this contract with my staff. They were professional from day one, and I think it made it a lot easier for us to negotiate this contract. As I know you all saw, it's on similar terms than the other two contracts you've already approved this year. Specifically, I'll talk about each particular year. It totals 6.5% as with the other contract. This one is 2.75 in its first year, retroactive July 1, and then 2%, and then 1.75% in the third year. Once again, like the other contracts you saw, it also increases the premium share for the insurance, which of course saves us a little bit of money that way. I do believe that obviously some management terms were changed and some employee terms were changed. It was kind of a mutual agreement on the term part of it, but overall I think this was a very good contract, not only for the town but for the employees. Any questions?
No, I just want to echo your thanks. Well, thanks to you for negotiating on behalf of the town, but also thanks to the Public Works Department and their negotiations as well, and their president. So I think it was a great agreement, and I appreciate all the effort you guys all spent negotiating for us. Mr. Dietzick.
I just have a quick question. Am I allowed to reference the agreement, or is it privileged?
I'm sorry?
Am I allowed to reference my questions to the
Certainly
agreement?
document that's in front of you, absolutely, yeah.
So, I guess this may be the only time I can ask this question, without someone not answering next time. So, we've approved a lot of these, and every time I see the same thing. So, you have Shipman and Goodwin representing our union, correct? Who's one of the preeminent law firms.
Representing the town.
So they're representing the town.
Not the union.
So they're not representing the union. So, I guess my question is, what happens if we said no to this document? If you just play the string out to this agreement, if we say no, what happens?
The whole purpose of this is the reason why I talked to you, all of you, offline, is the fact that you know exactly where I am with these. And at the beginning of the year, as you know, I talked about where I was going to go with each one of the 3 union contracts you've approved, up to 2 plus this one. So I always get the feeling for the council. This is not, obviously I've been negotiating union contracts for 20-odd years for the town. This one, and that's why I say I appreciate the union so much, is we did a lot of this stuff without Shipman. And not to say that they're not a good law firm, but the more we do without them, the cheaper it is for the town. But in this particular case, as you know, when I discussed the first contract with you back in, I think, January, we talked about where my thoughts were, and as I was going to go from contract to contract. So to answer your question is, I would not bring a contract to you that I didn't know that you had already been comfortable with the other contracts. But to answer your question, if you said no to this particular contract, I would have to go back and renegotiate. Of course, I would feel that a little out of step in the fact that when I talk to the union and I give union my proposal, I truly feel that I've already discussed it with you guys, so therefore, I'm pretty comfortable giving that to the union. So I would feel a little bit taken aback if all of a sudden I was sent back saying, no, we don't agree with any of this stuff, so.
No, and I'm perfectly willing to defer to your judgment, but my question's, this is just my question. Okay, someone comes to us, they want a 6.5% increase over 3 years. What if we say no? It's a 1% increase over 3 years.
Then it would go to arbitration, more than likely. And the arbitrator would look at our contracts that we previously have. It would look at the board-wide contracts. It would look at contracts specifically through the state. And we would, depending on what certain things we go to arbitration with, whether it be salary, whether it be medical, whatever the case may be, the arbitrator would then make decisions on year 1, year 2, year 3. When it comes to salary, year 1, year 2, year 3, when it comes to medical. So it would go to an arbitrator, and it's based upon what the overall town status is, plus our current contracts in place.
So really, this agreement kind of contemplates what an arbitrator would come out with as a result, and
Both sides, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this, both sides understand that the last thing we want to do is both of us go to an arbitrator. We want to get as close as possible, because with arbitration, you have a chance of losing. So if you can come to an agreement that we believe is fair for the town and and the employees feel free that it's also good for them, that's where you go. With an arbitrator, you're going to three individuals, one of which is an independent, one's labor, one's management, and anything can happen there. So I've never been very big on the gambling aspect of it. Unless we're so far apart that we couldn't even come close to one another, then you go to arbitration, because there's really nothing to gain there.
Thank you. I didn't know, so I just was curious. Thank you.
Good question.
Okay, any other questions related to the Public Works contract?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next thing I have, I know that you all saw this previously, but with a different company. As I said to you before, that we were all set to go with the fuel cell at the water pollution control facility, but the company that we were contracting with stopped doing work in Connecticut for whatever reason. So therefore, we had Adam, who was our former energy consultant, but he's still our energy consultant on this particular project, and he's here tonight to recommend Bloom, which has already been to the sewer committee, and they've already unanimously recommended it. So between Keith and Adam, if they could put a little brief presentation on Bloom Energy.
Just take us a few minutes to set this up.
Or a thumb drive.
Keith, do you wanna give an overview verbally, or do you think you got it? Oh, you got it?
Okay.
Okay.
have the slides.
There we go.
Here we go.
Great.
Sorry for the delay.
All right, if I have the most technology knowledge in this room, we're all in trouble.
So I assume all you folks are familiar with the concept of a fuel cell, where it takes natural gas and electricity and produces, well, actually, you have to plug it in to turn it on, but it produces electricity and steam. And
Sure.
so here we go.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Nice to see everybody again. I will do my best to give everybody a refresher on this project. A lot of this would look fairly familiar. Just to give a little bit of brief context, the previous provider that we'd been working with at the 11th hour pulled out of Connecticut for offering their power purchase agreements for fuel cell technology. So we had looked for an alternative and found a California-based company, Bloom Energy. They're really the only other fuel cell manufacturer for commercial scale of this size. And so we contacted them and had them do an analysis for the project, and the numbers actually came out better. So, it's just unfortunate turn of events that the previous provider backed out, but I think at the end of the day, it works out well for Southington. So I just wanted to give everybody a quick overview of the project. Just some of this will look pretty familiar, but it's been a while since we last talked about it. So there's a very big sustainability benefit from fuel cells from an emission standpoint with CO2, NOx, and the water reduction based on the amount of water used by a traditional energy plant. It's going to shrink pretty significantly, and this is something that the town could use potentially to earn some more sustainability credits. They've done this in the past through Eversource. This could be a very good way to do that as well. But suffice it to say that running a fuel cell to power the plant is it certainly demonstrates a higher commitment to environmental sustainability than pulling power from the street. So the Bloom PPA, that's the power purchase agreement, very similar to the other agreements that the town has with renewable energy companies. The system creates electricity, and there's a price per kilowatt hour associated with that the town pays, which is significantly less than it costs from Eversource. So this is just some quick overview of the project with the financials. The project size is about 300 kW. Might not mean too much to the average viewer, but the average annual savings associated with operating the plant over the 15-year term is approximately $134,000. The total savings over the 15-year contract life is roughly $2 million. And the percentage of cost reduction as opposed to pulling power from Eversource is just north of 30%. So this is an analysis that we conducted internally here at Titan, also with the help of the current consultant that the town uses, and Bloom Energy as well. Just some quick key facts for the record. Again, 300 kW, you are charged for the kilowatt hours created by the machine. The tolling rate is essentially just the power purchase agreement price, so that's the price you pay per kilowatt hour. There is an escalator factored into that, which was also factored into the financials of the project. The term of the agreement is 15 years with opportunities to extend at the end of 15 if the town wishes to do so. In the event that the town wishes not to continue, Bloom will take the equipment back and restore the site to its pre-construction condition. We've also been working pretty significantly with Ty and Bond over the last couple months to make sure that we're integrating the fuel cell plant in with the renovations at the plant. So we've done a good job covering that base. Some of the incentives that stand behind this project, there's a federal ITC that Bloom Energy would be entitled to take, and the LREC, the Low Emission Renewable Energy Credit. Very similar to the ZREC. The town has some familiarity with that, but it's for low emission, not zero emission. Bloom Energy is going to cause the system to be installed, taking care of the entirety of the engineering, the maintenance, the operation throughout the term of the agreement, so there's zero cost to the town. The plant will run in parallel with the grid, so when the grid goes down, the machine will go down, but in working with the folks at the plant, it sounded to us that there was sufficient redundancy at the plant already, so instead of adding additional cost to the fuel cell, we figured we'd do a simple configuration and let the standby generators do their job if EverSource ever goes down. And some of the rest of this, warranties, Bloom is going to stand behind the asset for a 15-year period, and that's codified in the power purchase agreement that we have reviewed. Obviously, the town's investment grade credit, so there's no issue there. And there are terms, contract extension terms that we talked about that leave room for the town under the worst case scenario to say we wish to terminate the agreement at the end, take the equipment back and restore the site. So just wanted to give everybody a sense of where we are today. We've conducted a very thorough opportunity assessment that involved a handful of site visits to the facility that were conducted during the summer and into the early fall. We have engaged with the town attorney to review the power purchase agreement. So we have that step complete, and we're really just at the point now where we can move forward with the project once the power purchase agreement is executed. And then we go to the system build and startup, which at the end of, just as a for instance, if we have the power purchase agreement signed within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'd be looking at most likely an operational start date of late September or October for the machine. So it roughly takes about a year from the engineering, bringing the equipment on site, finishing the installation, looking at about 12 months once you have the contract executed. Just a brief update here, market conditions report. One of the key questions that we get asked, about is, how do we ensure that the system will save money over time? I mean, I think other than the emissions component and the environmental aspects of the project, the key question usually is this going to produce a good financial outcome for the town? And the system is fueled by natural gas, so there is a strong correlation between the economics of the plant and what the natural gas market does. And this chart is simply just to demonstrate that these two commodities tend to move in tandem. So if you have, let's say, a worst case scenario condition where gas prices were increasing, not only are you inherently protected because you have a fixed electric cost, but we would have some options as well to fix the cost of the commodity for the gas meter that feeds the fuel cell, so that the town would have some options in the event that the natural gas market started to deviate from historical trends. I thought this would be helpful too, just to give a quick side-by-side of the other versus what we're contemplating here. The agreement on previous was 20 years. This is a 15. Pricing structure on the other agreement was a fixed discount, which basically means that the cost for energy coming from the fuel cell was linked to whatever the prevailing price of power was at the time. So the fundamental trade-off there is you fix the amount that you can save. So under any condition, you're capped at a $60,000 per year savings. In this case, we have a much higher likelihood of capturing more savings over time, also with some flexibility to manage the gas as well, which the other power purchase agreement didn't offer. Gas was included in the previous power purchase agreement. This one, the gas is a responsibility of the town. In neither situation was waste heat utilized, so it's a one-for-one toss-up there. System location, the same location, the denitrification plant, and the other and Bloom are both ready and willing to pay for the LREC down payment, which is approximately $30,000. So it's a responsibility that the town wouldn't have to bear. Some of this is a little bit just, educational about Bloom and some of their customers. They are a publicly traded company with a high-profile client list, so I think their track record demonstrates that they could undertake this project and serve the town of Southington well. Again, a little bit of marketing fluff, but you get the idea.
I saw TJ Maxx.
That's how the clothes are so cheap. Yeah, so. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, I think we have a couple questions. Councilman Ricchio?
Dawn, go first.
Yep, I do. Now, I don't know if it's a question, and you sort of alluded to it in your presentation about everyone wants to know, are there really going to be savings? I mean, you mentioned 2 million. It's like, wow, that's awesome over 15 years, but I know Mr. Lombardi is probably going to say, and I agree, what's the assurity? I mean, I feel like we had that even with our solar fields, that there was going to be savings, and we don't seem to always see that within our Board of Ed budget and that sort of thing. So I feel like it sort of gets nebulous.
Sure.
And it never seems so poignant, like, this is how much you saved because of this.
I think the question, because I've encountered this before
Yeah.
when working with Southington on the Board of Ed side, and with other municipalities too, it's a completely legitimate question.
Right.
Because sometimes a reduction in cost can be hard to identify.
Yes.
And how you quantify it and how you raise a flag and say, we did this, can be difficult unless you are monitoring the performance of the asset and really doing a thorough accounting of putting a number to it and sharing that. And what makes it somewhat difficult too is that these technologies, they are part of a greater mix of what's going on at an energy meter. So there could be other forces sort of pushing and pulling. As you're lowering costs on one end, something could be happening at the meter that could increase it on another end.
Right.
So you have to monitor it on an asset-specific basis instead of simply just looking at the energy bills themselves and saying, well, in fiscal year 20, our costs were 5 million, and in fiscal year 2021 they were 4.5 million. Or if they increase, it's not. You can't just look at the bills and answer that question. You need to study the performance of the machine and then integrate that into a larger assessment of what is going on at that meter.
Right.
So it's not always neat and clean, but it's certainly possible to do. And that's how I would recommend assessing how much value has been created by the operation of the plant.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Ricchio?
Yeah, a couple of questions. I don't think there's a downside to it. On the equipment, since we're leasing it, they're not paying taxes on the. There's no taxes being paid on the equipment, correct, Mark?
I do not believe so. I have to check.
Yeah. So the way Bloom would own the equipment, and I can say just
Just like the solar panels.
from Titan's experience owning energy generation equipment in other municipalities, we've paid property tax. I can think of at least a few examples. Solar is a little different because it's a class 1, and I think there's a state, basically a state
Solar
rule.
does not pay.
Right.
Solars do not pay.
It's exempt. 'Cause
That's
it's
kind of
class-
redundant, though. I mean, if we're charging them taxes and they're charging us, that's something I would look at.
Yeah, we could, the town attorney could check on that.
Okay.
She reviewed it, but I don't recall that being in that part
Okay.
of it.
Yeah,
I think-
and frankly, I'm not sure if because it would be, I'd have to check and look at the, Connecticut tax law and see if
Okay.
fuel cells or if there's property tax.
I've always, as most people know, I break expenses down to a house, right? And so if we get 2 million over 15 years, it works out to around 300 houses worth of taxes over that 15-year period could go to paving roads, and we might get 15 miles of roads resurfaced or something like that. So I think in that regard, that's entire massive subdivision of houses taxes would be saved to be put to other uses. And then I just make a statement. And then my last question would be, and I think Keith may have answered this in the past, there's no way for us to burn the methane coming off of that plant. And yeah.
No longer. The digesters for the plant are no longer functional, so we don't digest the sludge to produce methane at the plant.
Oh, we haul the sludge out.
We haul the sludge out and we buy methane.
Okay.
It's used in a process in the nitrification
Got it.
building.
Okay. Right. Okay. That was it. I think we're doing so many other energy-related things. I think this is just another feather in the cap.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, there's really only 2 locations. This is worthwhile for us. One is waterproof control, and then obviously if it's successful, we'll talk about with the BOE down the road of possibly the high school. That's the only other 2. There's the only 2 locations in Signton that can handle this type of generation. So this was the first place we wanted to try it out. I agree with you, Councilman, that there's no downside to the town. Remember, there's always going to be a positive. Obviously, the numbers, and if you look at the reports, the new reports that Mr. Lombardi and I were talking about, you just got them the last time, the supplemental reports. If you look at those for solar, it's pretty easy to figure out where the savings is. Now, remember, savings and cost avoidance are 2 different things.
Right.
So savings leads to cost avoidance. It doesn't mean there's going to be a dollar drop for everyone's electric bill. So if you want to, they're going to come out quarterly. When you look at them for solar, you're going to see the school, you're going to see the month, what was generated from solar, what was generated from the grid, and you'll see the savings on there. So those will be easier for you to read, and Tom and I worked on that for a little while just to get it so that it's very understandable. This one here, I have not, when I start seeing the reports next fall, I'll be able to explain to the council how to read those, but obviously until I see those reports.
The high school, though, isn't there a noise issue? Wouldn't there be a noise issue at the high school?
No, so they're not silent per se, but the only sound that you hear is the fans.
Oh.
So keeping the system cool.
So I was
no
told
louder
they're
than
kind of like the
boiler.
HVACs on the roof, very similar
Yeah.
to HVAC systems on the roof.
And there's a sound enclosure and
Yeah.
all that good stuff. Footprint-wise, it's about, let's say, a shipping container size. So fairly compact, but they have to be outdoors just because you need to take in fresh air.
Yep.
And you need available footprint for that.
And I
luckily,
don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I brought that up as an FYI.
Yep.
Certainly, that's a decision for the BOE to discuss after this one's in place, and we'll study it for a period of time to see if it's efficient. Then the BOE can take a look at it and see if they want to move forward with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Lombardi.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam, for the presentation.
Sure.
So I think, just like what was just mentioned, have we looked into any impact on residential areas near this? Or is that going to fall on the Board of Ed? I'll wait. I'm directing my question at the town manager. I was going to, is there any impact on residents
That's what I just asked.
close by to the high school? And
Well, let's
if-
not.
if-
I'm probably made a mistake even mentioning the high school. Let's deal with just this in front of us right now with the.
Oh, this is
Pollution.
This is water pollution
Okay.
control.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Remember
I
I
just
said-
asked that. That's what I was whispering.
where did the high school comment come from?
Because there's only 2 structures in town.
Got you.
Mr. Ricchio was talking about possibly doing it. I mentioned there's only 2 structures in town that are even worthwhile putting the system in.
Understood. So we're talking about the wastewater.
Talking about water pollution
Okay.
control
And there's
only.
no residential areas this would impact because it's, okay.
It's in proximity, though, to some neighborhoods. So that could be a concern.
Okay, so I guess let's.
Hear from those neighbors
Let's
on the
have that,
walk.
let's have that discussion. If we approve this evening, does it
Keith-
need to
Keith
go
can answer your
through,
question.
does it need to go through planning and zoning or back to the council or something like that?
This is going to be located
In the plant.
within the confines of the plant. There's other functions in the plant that create much
Far louder. Far more
more
louder.
noise
Yep.
than what's going to be generated from this. You're not going to hear this over the spraying of the trickling filters or the pumps or anything else that's going on there. So
Okay, good.
It's-
Well,
Probably the cleanest thing going
I'm
on.
glad I asked the
Yeah,
question.
it's-
My
it's not going to create odors. It's going to create some steam
right.
and a little bit of fan noise, but you're not
Those
gonna be able
neighbors
to
have
hear it.
endured so much over the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So my other question's for Adam. Thank you, Keith. On page 5 of the actually, I want to put a disclaimer out there for you, like Councilwoman Miceli said. This is the exact reason why we hire our energy consultant, so that come budget time or any time during the year, the Board of Ed, the Board of Finance, the council, we can rely on the professional consultant that we have. So I understand that this is an estimate you put forward, but I think it's important that town staff stay in constant contact with our consultant. But on page 5, I want to understand that in your assumptions that you lay out, is the increase in the gas cost factored into those numbers?
It is. So on the electric and the gas cost, we
Okay.
are anticipating that the historic averages for utility cost escalation would be in effect throughout the term.
Great. And then I think it's important also on page 7, the key terms page, the federal investment tax credit and the LREC, those are all for Bloom. Those aren't really for the town. So, and later on, you say that we're saving $30,000 by not paying for the LREC, but we wouldn't pay for the LREC. It's worth $30,000 to pay for the LREC if you own the system. So I think we just have to make sure we understand that terminology in this.
Sure.
Last question. What is Titan's relationship to Bloom? I love to have you here. I always enjoy your presentations, but why is Titan Energy here versus the other? I
Yeah,
can't
there's
think
a
of the
reason
name.
why, and I mentioned it the last one, is that Adam started this process before we went to RFP.
Right.
I felt, as your manager, that I wanted to continue Adam on this one and let him finish off this particular project since he was very familiar with it. I spoke with the little committee that we had when we did the RFP interviews, and I brought that up, that it was my opinion we do that. They all agreed, so leaving Adam on board until we complete this project, I thought made sense.
That makes sense. Thank you. And thank you again for coming.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Let's get a few of some.
Okay. So moving on with the
Next
town
item I
manager's
have, Mr.
report.
Chairman, a little excitement here. Hopefully, this will be the last design situation when it comes to the rails to trails leading up to the Plainville line. Keith, if you can give us a brief synopsis of what we're requesting, and hopefully the last of the design, and the state will take over after that.
So if you recall, the state of Connecticut, we made a request that the state of Connecticut include a sidewalk from the trail down Newell. It would connect to West Queen Street and kind of give the trail direct access to Route 10. The DOT said that they would add the sidewalk to the construction phase, and they would fund it 100% on the condition that the town provided the design of the sidewalk. So my office has designed the sidewalk, but there's some coordination to incorporate our design into the plans that are prepared by BL. So we've applied for a LoCIP grant for the $23,000 that BL would charge to incorporate our plans into their plans. And as a condition of the LoCIP grant used for design, the town council has to approve the construction of the project formally, because they will not give design money out unless they can be assured that the contract will go to construction. So this resolution is simply saying that you as a town council supports the construction of the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail extension from Lazy Lane to the town line. So it's just a formality to allow us to apply for the grant to mesh the two projects.
Any questions?
I do. Keith, I know we've talked about it in Public Works quite often. Just remind the public in terms of how we go about actual design, meaning where there'll be benches, landscaping, things like that. What is the time frame with that? Because I've had comments about the Cheshire aspect and how they designed it somewhat differently than some parts of our trail. where will the council or the Public Works Committee be involved in terms of helping decide some of those issues?
That should be coming up. We're just entering the semifinal design phase, so all those details will get fleshed out between semifinal and final design. So that's pretty much the next phase of what we'll be doing.
Okay, because I think that's important for maybe who's ever does get reelected, that has some type of public input in terms of what they like to see the trail to look like, if it's part of the cost factor, which it is, and then they can maybe give some ideas of what they'd like to see. So that would probably be on the Public Works, and then it would come to the council. Is that what you envision?
Probably not the council, probably just
Okay.
Public Works, but there's a few locations that are set aside for that right now. One is under the I-84 bridge. The trail, it's kind of wide open in that space, so they're going to do kind of a landscape meander as it goes underneath the bridge. That gives us some opportunities for some plantings and amenities. And then there's another location for like a pocket park where we hit Aircraft Road, and there's a lot of land as we make the corner. So there'd be like a little pocket park as we make the corner. We've also coordinated with some of the businesses there for interconnections, but that doesn't really give you the benches and amenities. But those will be flushed
Yeah,
out in this
as
next
long
phase.
as there's some oversight of any council people that would maybe like to bring something to the table. That will be an option sometime over the next 6 months, you would envision?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you, Keith.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the town attorney's report. I think we covered it, but
All right, I think we did just beyond the volunteer tax abatement that's on for action tonight. I have no further report.
okay. So that brings us to public communication, where we allow the public to come forward and share their thoughts with us. The microphone is now open. I'd ask residents to just limit their comments to 5 minutes and begin by stating their name and address for the record. So the microphone is open.
No Elio mic for our last meeting.
Just thinking the same thing.
Last few meetings.
Hi, Larry.
My name is Larry DiPaolo, Blatchley Avenue, Southington. First thing, last meeting was a public hearing for the tax abatement type program. Well, I think whoever sends those notices out, I mean, when you send out the agenda, it should say on there, no date change, no address change. Because I get these in the email, and I never look at where, 21 out of 22 meetings is held here. Last meeting I came here. It was a planning and zoning meeting. There wasn't a sign outside saying that the meeting was being held at the town hall. Nothing. So I think whoever sends those notices out got to be more diligent as to when there's a change of address for the meeting, or even put a sign out here to say tonight's town hall meeting is at the 75 Main Street, not here.
So I share those, after you and I spoke, I share those concerns with the manager, and we'll certainly take that into consideration moving forward and apologize for the miscommunication for you.
Okay, because I'm going to talk old business now as far as in regards to that, what would happen. Now, which was passed last week, I'm 100% in favor of it. It was a good program. I go back to 2006 when the town council passed the tax reform bill, and they had no lien in there. And 6 of the 10 members that were on that town council are in this room tonight. So they kind of know what I'm talking about. So we at this, just about this time of the year, we got out and got signatures, and we brought it to the town, and they had a referendum on that particular passage of that tax abatement. It was soundly defeated. Two out of 3 people voted against it. The town council come back, and they put a lien in it, and everything been running fine for 13 years. Everything's going good. I'm in favor of everything you did. But in this, I came up with some information that a lot of people are not aware of in this meeting, in this room, or in the town. We do also, in addition to this program, and I'm talking, I got 2018 figures. We have a tax relief program, which not on your assessments. They get money back if they qualify. Okay, In 2018, we had 615 people in this town apply for that tax relief. And the town of Southington gave back over $350,000 in taxes to the people with no lien. Okay, so, I mean, over a period of 3 years, we're giving away $1 million that we're not getting in here. And the whole purpose is to help the people out. And I got nothing against helping people out and what we're doing here in this town. And this here was something that the state started and then they backed out. We were paying half, they were paying half. Now we're paying the whole darn thing. I think things have gotten a little bit better. So last year, I think it was like it was 500 and something, but it was only 330,000 we paid out. But that's a budgetary item that we approve every year. And by putting a lien onto that money, we're not affecting the people that need the help. They're getting the help they're getting today. The only thing is when the person passes, then the town would get their money when they sell the property. So we're dishing out over $300,000 a year in taxes to these people that need the help, and they'll still get the same help they're getting today, and we get our money back at the end. But we're not getting anything back. And a lot of these people that are on this particular program, nowhere's in these programs does it ask, it says what your income is. Well, a lot of people are going out and refinancing their home. They're getting $15,000, $20,000 a year from the bank or however they refinance their home, and that we don't know anything about that. So they're getting that $20,000 that would maybe not make them eligible for the program. So they're getting all this money that they don't have to put on anywhere on the form that they're getting this money for the sale of their home, and they got all this income, but it doesn't show up on the tax, doesn't show up anywhere, but they got that money to spend. Plus, under that program, they can get as much as $1,250 per person back on their taxes. And their minimum is what the town allows for our maximum. So, I mean, we got 4 people in our thing, and they got around 600. It's down under 600 now because things are a little bit better. But I think if we put the lien on that money, it's not affecting these people at all. They're still going to get their property taxes reduced. They're going to get the same they're getting today. They're going to get next year and the year after. And we come in at the very end when they sell the home. Example, somebody could have a 100-acre dairy farm and live on Social Security. But if they turn around and get a reverse mortgage, they get a lot of money coming in. And then when they pass away, the family sells the land, they get all the money, and it costs us a lot of money. So I'm just saying, I think that committee should have looked into putting the lien onto all this other money because, like I said, over a 3-year period, it's $1 million. Every 3 years, it's over $1 million. We're not getting in our taxes that the rest of us are paying for it. Okay.
Thank you. So just to share with everyone else, Larry and I had a conversation about this. He's absolutely right. Last year, there were 585 applicants, and it cost the town $332,513. However, it is a state-mandated program. In fact, in the state, thank you to Teresa. I reached out to Teresa Babin to give me this information, but it's a state-mandated program. One town tried to opt out of it, that was Shelton, and they were told they don't have that option. They cannot opt out of it, so it's mandated, and furthermore, we cannot place a lien on this program. So essentially it's a state mandate, as many other things that the state pushes down on us, but our hands are tied. We can't, the town cannot do anything different.
Yeah, but when the state had it mandated, the state was paying half and we were paying half.
But
so
I understand.
When they dropped out, why didn't we just take our half, which was the mandate was half.
Teresa's here, so I can have her comment, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The state put it on all the municipalities, not just Southington. And again, it's not a local decision; it's a state decision. We don't like it either, just like many other state mandates, but we don't have a choice in the matter. So if you'd like, I can. Teresa is here tonight. If you don't.
I believe her. I mean,
it's just not, Larry, you're familiar with state mandates when it comes to these cases. I don't want to badmouth this particular state statute, because there's a lot of good to it too, and I'll get to that in a second. But the issue is there's plenty of programs that the state starts and says, okay, we're gonna do this to the municipality, we're gonna give you 80%. Then it goes down, 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 and eventually says, you still have to do it, but we're not giving you any money for it. They're called unfunded mandates. We have them all the time. But I don't wanna just leave it here thinking that this program doesn't do some good. This allows people who live in the town of Southington who may not be able to stay in their home. It freezes their taxes, and it allows them to stay in the property. So, and I don't like the term that we use saying that we're giving away. It isn't necessarily so. There's also benefits to this. These people have to meet an income criteria, and yes, do people try and cheat the system? Of course. But I'm not a big fan of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. So there are situations where that happens, but this particular plan, although I would love the state to continue to pay for it, they don't. But there is some good that comes out of this program.
I got nothing wrong with the program. I back it 100%. All I'm saying is that somebody's going to benefit on the other end on our cost is when the person passes away, then we get our money. We don't change the program at all. They still get exactly what they're getting today.
I don't disagree with you, but we don't have the right to do that. But so we don't have the right to get out of the program. We don't have the right to lean it. But I don't want to leave here with people thinking it's a bad program too.
Well, no, it's a good program. I'm just saying we
We're
could.
all the same
Well,
money.
maybe we should get a hold of our state representatives to see if they can't change the law.
That's a different issue, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Bill Delvecchia, 1163 West Center Street, and also a member of the Emergency Medical Services Oversight Committee. Transparency and honesty in our local government. This has been mentioned numerous times over the past 2 years at these council meetings. On social media last week, I saw an ad in bold uppercase print that read, Southington Democrats support open, honest government. I take exception to one of the items the majority party of this council is claiming. One member of the majority party posted on social media about a week ago the following. People may not know that our team's commitment to public safety includes increasing the number of emergency vehicles in Southington at no additional cost. The statement was followed by a block ad stating, we're not your average Democrats, followed by 6 red stars and a picture of an AMR ambulance. In red letters below the ambulance was the phrase, did you know? And the answer was Southington Democrats added extra EMT services at no additional cost. This is where I take exception, and I'll explain. The chase car, also known as the fly car, has been in the contract since at least the June 24, 2010 contract. It was in Section 6D of that contract. In fact, in my opinion, that article is better than the addendum that was added last year because it required a transport ambulance must arrive within 2 minutes of the chase car for it to be compliant. The July 2012 contract, the chase car was 6E, and it called for an ambulance within 3 minutes of the chase car. The May 6, 2015 contract, the chase car was 6E, and called for an ambulance within 4 minutes of that chase car. The current contract, dated 7/24/18, the chase car is 6E, and it calls for an ambulance within 4 minutes. That's been in this contract now since 2010. In the current contract, there's an addendum that basically allows the chase car to respond to the calls, but has no reference to getting a transport ambulance to the scene. I believe 6E is better for the town than, but both 6E and the addendum to the agreement call for the use of the chase car. So, as you can see, nothing new has been added to give us more coverage. This statement I located in the town council minutes of July 23rd, 2018. I believe the minutes paraphrase the actual remarks. The statement was made by the council chairman during discussion of the AMR contract. The chair commented, this contract, the council negotiated with AMR, and as a result, our director mentioned a fly car. What that is an additional first responder that we have gained as the contract will be approved tonight. It is not a transport vehicle, however, it is an additional first responder above and beyond the amount of first responders we had in the past. The council advocated for that, and I am appreciative that the AMR agreeing to do this for the town. It is an additional benefit to the residents of our town to have an additional first responder in Southington. Mr. Chairman, I would like clarifications from you as to the validity of your claim that a new vehicle was added to the contract and that was not available in the prior contracts. Thank you, and I await your comments this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Delavec, and I can read you an email that was just sent from the Director of Health, Shane Lockwood, October 23rd. So after this, and it reads, the addendum codifies an unwritten past practice of AMR using the fly car to respond to emergencies when the fly car is available and is appropriate for the nature of the response. So as we mentioned, and the entire council was present when we had these conversations, we were told that this is an additional service that was not in the contract, and I clarified that and have it in writing from Shane Lockwood, again, dated October 23rd. So that's less than a week ago. And if I can turn to the town manager to verify everything that I'm stating.
Yeah, I also received a copy of that. I do believe that we're looking at two different sections. 6E, if I remember correctly, and I don't have the contract in front of me, but maybe
I do.
You do. 6E is actually a right of AMR. That's a right for them to make the required time period. So if you're AMR, you actually would want 6E because it benefits them because they're able to make their time by getting the chase car there and then a service ambulance within a period of time. I think Bill and I both agree on that. It benefits AMR. What AMR did in the past is, and I hate to use the word, but I'll use it, an oral agreement, which lawyers hate using those words, but the oral agreement where AMR always said because they have a headquarters here in town, they had, and I think this is all public session that we discussed at the ambulance committee, so I'm not saying anything we didn't discuss in the executive session, but they always said that because we have supervisor vehicles in town, we're able to supplement your services, but we had never codified that, to use a written term. So I think the last time around when we were discussing, and this we were discussing in that room, so I won't go too far into it, the question came up about, well, what could you put in writing that could be something more substantial? And at that point, they said that, well, we do this, we've been doing this for years, as Bill mentioned, but what we can do is we can codify. So the way I look at it is 6E benefits AMR because it allows them to get there within the 759, 1359 under the contract, and the codification, for lack of a better term, kind of benefits the town because it puts something in writing that really AMR has been doing for us for years.
So
I guess that's the way I'd phrase it.
So let me just understand. So they were always doing this, back to what the date that Bill had said, but now it's in writing, so
Well, I disagree that 6E, and this is where, if we have any disagreement, Bill and I, to that one, 6E really isn't a quote-unquote benefit to the town. It benefits AMR because it allows them to meet those time periods without getting a full ambulance there. So let's look at that side. The other thing is that for years, I haven't been on in the last couple of years, but for years, AMR, because they have the place over on Atwater, they always have these supervisor vehicles, so they're around here. They've always said, well, we have them here, we can use them if we have them, and that's where I think it came in. It was a codified something that that they had been doing, perfectly blunt.
So we got it in writing.
Yeah, there's something in writing that was, it's a codification, something they've been doing a while.
The existing practice, we got in writing.
Yeah.
It was in the contract. It's in writing.
But it is in the
The town
contract,
had the
according-
use of that vehicle if they did it.
Oh, the only
It was
difference,
something
though,
they would
Bill,
do.
the only difference I see is that it also comes in when it's not 6E. Because remember, 6E covers time periods. Let's assume they're not an overload, and they just want to use it, they have a chase car available that's closer. They could do that too. That's what the codification is. It says in there, when applicable, and when in town, we could use this to supplement services. So 6E simply covers them for time periods. And I know it may sound semantical to you, but it's not. There's a small distinction here that AMR is saying to you, okay, we're going to put something in writing that we, as a courtesy, have been giving you in the past. And that's all it is. It's a codification.
Just for point of clarification, this came because there were members of the council that wanted another ambulance in town. There were complaints that we didn't have enough ambulance coverage. And AMR said, we're giving you free service. If you want another ambulance in town,
Yep.
you're going to pay for it.
Right.
Nobody wanted to pay for it. So this practice has been going on for years.
Correct.
They're contractually obligated
Right. So it's always been happening. It's just in writing.
Yeah, but-
I don't know the details of the contract as well as Mr. Delavec obviously does. He sits on the committee. But that was the history. We wanted another one. We didn't get it. We have what we already had.
And one other clarification, I appreciate you because bringing this to our attention, because I didn't fully realize that piece that was stated tonight or until last week when I caught wind of this, because I was under the impression, as I thought all 9 of us were, that this is an additional service. Now, it is when you look at what's in writing and what they now have to provide. However, that is not the way it was presented to us when we were told this.
They don't
So-
have to provide because they're not providing. They don't have to provide, Mr. Chairman. It's in there. It says if it's here and if we want to do it. Well, it's no different than what 6E did. But 6E had strength of an ambulance being there within a certain time frame. That helped, and I know it meets the criteria of the time, but that's better for us than this other that may be smoke and mirrors because they don't do anything about it. I asked the question, and they don't do anything about it.
Well, I can assure you that we did not feel it was smoke and mirrors at the time, and I did not even realize that was the case until you brought it to our attention. But again, it was not in writing the way it was, and I'm not going to reiterate what the town manager said.
It's pretty. What you're asking is a pretty simple question. I'm giving a pretty simple answer. The fact of the matter is that if they had an agreement with us before that simply said if we have a chase car in town, we could use it for you. Not necessarily under the auspices of 6E, but we could use it for any reason. That's what they always did. When they were in executive session with us, they stated that, and the question was, can you put that in writing? And they put it in writing. It's as simple as that. I don't, we're not reinventing a wheel here. It was an oral thing that they said, and I certainly wasn't confused when they said it in executive session because that's what they said. And then we all said, if you can put that in writing, they put it in writing, and we agreed to it.
Councilman Poulos?
Yeah, I find like the concern from members on the dais about this this addition of the chase car curious. At the time we had this discussion, I recall being presented a contract that was identical to the 2015 contract, and we asked for additional services. They came back with the addendum, and as what was read, the chairman said this is an addition of a chase car. There was no objection. There was no one said, wait a second, it's the same as 6E. There was no objection. In fact, wait, let me finish, Mr. Ricchio. On August 3rd, 2018, Victoria Triano, longtime counselor, I'm sure she's certainly approved many AMR contracts. I'm sure she's read them all. And she's been quite a vocal advocate of public safety. We fought together for public safety, she and I. She was quoted in the paper by saying, I'm pleased with the addition of a chase car to help Southington's emergencies. There was no concern. That is what we were told by our town staff, 2 lawyers, and a department head. And that's what we had in our head when we voted on this contract.
Without a doubt.
And so I'm just I'm curious why there's such a concern all of a sudden now after a year later.
I think I can point out that the concern is, because I got a call from Mr. Delavec and a couple other people, that there's an advertisement out there, it's campaign season, whatever it is, but it's misleading. We wanted another ambulance in town. We didn't get another ambulance in town. And I knew full well, we sat in this room over here when AMR sat there, that they weren't adding anything. I knew that. I voted for it, knowing full well what we were getting and what we weren't getting. If you want to include the council, don't include me in on that, because I knew very well that we weren't getting anything new. Nothing. If that's what you believe, that's great. I can't vote for you. I can't vote for anybody else. I can vote for myself. I knew full well when that went down, we weren't getting a blessed thing. It's fine. I would like another ambulance in town. I'd like 2 more ambulances in town. But it all comes down to what we can afford. And so all I think that Mr. Delavec was upset with, because he serves on that thing and he knows that contract every inch of it, is that there was potentially misleading advertising out there for the public to think, hey, we got a new ambulance in town, with the picture of the AMR ambulance saying extra EMTs added. What's the average citizen supposed to think? That's very misleading, and I think I said that to you. That's his point. I think his point actually goes beyond that. But I voted full well knowing that there was no new ambulances, No new chase cars, no new nothing. Their headquarters is on Atwater Street, and there's chase cars there parked all day long. So,
Go ahead.
So I'm looking at the minutes from July 23rd, 2018. And Ms. Triano, you are quoted in saying, per the minutes, I make a motion to approve the 3-year contract with AMR and thank them for adding the fly car to their help for Southington.
Right, because one of the things that I felt at that time, and I'm happy that we do have it codified now, I'm not saying that I don't, but my impression was that they were not forced to have it in Southington at that time. And so when I said, I'm glad that that's settled, that it's in Southington, that's what I was talking, but I knew that's what I meant, and I knew full well we weren't getting another ambulance. I even said to Chris, I think, well, that was never mind. But I think, I made a comment, I was gonna say it, but I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna get more into it. But I do think that, that we're talking about the ad, and I think if anybody's been with Mr. Delavec on anything, we're very fortunate to have him on the ambulance committee because he goes through things like with a fine-tooth comb. And so I know that he was upset to think that voters were thinking that we're bringing in a new ambulance, and the expectation was a new ambulance, and in fact, that is not the case. So that's all I'm saying. I mean, you know, it's political time, and but I know that it bothered him a great deal.
And this is public communication, so there really isn't a time to go back and forth, but I'm just going to make 2 statements in response to that. I will tell you that I absolutely did think that we were getting something in writing. I did not know the details about whether they were doing it when they could or not, but never was it relayed that we were getting an additional ambulance. It says first responder for a reason, because the pace car is a first responder, not a transportation vehicle. And the second point is, I can't believe that we're getting into conversations about misleading political jargon, because I don't even think we want to go down that road right now with some of the language from the opposition party as well. So with that being said, this is public communication, and if there's no other member of the public, we can move on with our meeting. Any other members of the public? Okay, so we're moving on to old business, action on the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the volunteer firefighter tax abatement ordinance. It's my pleasure to do that, and I'm so happy that we're moving forward with this. It's such a positive, and I'm glad it's one of the last things that I'll vote on before I leave this.
Second.
Okay, and we have a second. Is there any other discussion?
Yep.
Wait, I have a discussion, Mr. Lombardi.
Just to reiterate, it's a tax credit.
I'm reading off of our.
I'm good with the motion. I just wanted to say it again.
Do I need to amend?
No.
No.
Okay.
Believe it or
It
not.
says tax abatement
Yeah,
ordinance.
believe it or not, abatement, but
And-
he doesn't want you to confuse it with an assessment abatement, which is a different issue.
Well, I'm not the assessor, so it doesn't matter whether I do or not.
Okay,
Mr. Berry, I think, had something.
Okay.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, on the advice of council, I will abstain from voting on this due to a possible perception of a conflict of interest due to family members' longtime service as volunteer firefighters.
Okay. Is there any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for
Sure.
statutory purposes, it goes into effect 20 days after publication, but it's a little different. It doesn't affect it to the following grand list, because on June 21st of next year, 2020, the fire chief staff will report the people who apply for it and are able to get into the full category or the partial category to the assessor's office, so it kicks in next year.
Okay. Any other comments?
No, I just wanted to say, it's been a long time coming. I'm very happy with this as well, and how long ago has it been, Bill? You had mentioned it in...
She said it was a year. I mean, I think we should review these things whenever the state changes. I'm sure someone knows, but...
Yeah, so I'm very much in favor of it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No,
Mr.
just to the
McHugh?
chief's point earlier that he spoke about it, I just hope that this is, the volunteer ranks decrease all the time, and hopefully this is a little bit of an incentive.
Great. I just to echo those statements, it just shows that the town's behind them, and we're doing everything we can to increase the enrollment in our volunteer firefighter ranks.
Great.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimous.
One
And one
abstention.
abstention from Councilman Berry.
Excellent.
Okay, so moving on, action on the Public Works contract. As we heard the manager report, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract that's presented.
Okay, we have a motion to
Second.
approve, and we have a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Action on Bloom fuel cell contract.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the action on the Bloom fuel cell contract.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that is, passes unanimously. And finally, the action on the resolution for the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail,
Mr.
Phase 4.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve the resolution for the Rails to Trails Phase 4.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes as well. Moving on to new business, tax refunds. Mr. Dietzick?
Can I just inquire how come there's so many this time?
Sure. She left.
Wait, let's see.
like
Could they-
30.
Are the July ones in there?
Maybe that's
July and
what it
August?
is.
If they're July and August, that means you're gonna get a lot of them because that's the pay period.
All right, I was just curious. I'll make a
My guess,
motion.
but I'm
Make a
not-
motion to approve the tax refunds itemized in the town council packet.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Appointments. First appointment is the Cable Advisory. It was a Democrat that was serving, and he resigned. So I'd just like to thank Michael Guarino for his service. We're looking for someone to replace him to July 2020. We don't have anyone right now, so unless you have someone that...
We have about 8 people lined up for it. We just can't
Sure.
decide.
Yes.
Mike's not gonna have anything to
We're
do
gonna
as of
need a
next
little
week.
cable.
Oh, yeah, let me do it.
Is that Cable
Actually, we can
Advisory?
appoint you, Mike. We
I'll
can
take
appoint
it.
you now.
Take it.
That was my first appointment by Art Secondo.
Yeah. All right, so with none, I'll entertain a motion to table.
Table.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And the next appointment is Plainville Southington Regional Health District, which is till November 2022. Currently serving are Joe Marino and John Berry, and I've been given both those names to be reappointed unless there's any objections.
So
Okay.
moved.
So moved. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, and we have a
Second.
motion to adjourn.
Good job, guys.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Goodbye, my council seat.